and welcome everybody. Let me just go ahead and start my slideshow. I'm sharing my desktop, so I'm just going to go through these quickly. Welcome, Stefan Sherwin and Ralph Kohler. Welcome. I'm going to talk about our linked open data, libraries, archives, and museums unconference conference. I'll show you all of this stuff. I just wanted to put that out there. I'm Chris Cabrera-Thompson. I work at UCLA. Been here for a number of years. Currently, I'm in the Department of English and writing programs. I'm also a chair for the American Library Association Web Services for Lib Interest Group, which I believe was called Drupal for Lib when I was working at the library. Not too many years ago, but some years ago. And I think I was chair then too for a couple of years. I've been here working with English, with the School of Education at UCLA, and I came across the linked open data unconference conference that was being held at the J. Paul Getty Trust Museum in Los Angeles in 2020. And I want to talk a little bit about this group and some of the things that we're trying to do and some of the goals for our next conference. This one was pretty interesting. It was, I think, a month before the pandemic hit, a month before we were told that we had to start working remotely. So it was a nice clear day then. Summit sponsors were Getty, Immunion Project, several other sponsors. And this is the website that sort of drew me in. And I'll show you that. But first I wanted to go through what LODLAM unconferences are, to talk a little bit about this project, how it's sort of structured. It's got this delegates grouping where people apply to become a delegate. They come to the conference. Typically, it's in the unconference mode where we try to show and tell primarily, and learn what other museums and libraries are up to in this area. I'll show you some of the presentations that occurred and the agenda that we sort of typically go through. I'll just go through these, and then there's breakout sessions that allow people to present and talk about specific subject areas. Very informal. It was held at the GRI at the Getty Research Institute. Really nice, wonderful spots. Big shout out to the J. Paul Getty Trust for putting this together, to hosting it, be the sponsor. And I think we're now looking at starting this up in 2024, probably 2025, in various locations. We're looking at Amsterdam at the Rijksmuseum, but there's another conference going on and we weren't able to make it that year, so we're looking at a few other spots, but the idea is to move it around some. I'll show you that. We'll go through kind of what this group does and how it pertains to linked open data. Yep, that's it. So that's the slideshow. That's the slideshow component. Welcome, everyone. So again, I'm Chris. Here is the, oops. Let me just bring up my website. Oh, here it is, the website here. This is the LODLAM site. So really, it's about a group of individuals who come together from very disparate libraries and organizations throughout the US, but also throughout, in other countries as well. It has a conference that focuses on linked open data. It looks to showcase things that folks are working on and to build a sense of community around this field. It's changed quite a bit in the last few years, I'm sure. and it was started quite a while ago. And I'm going to point you over to the, I think I could put this in the chat, the LoadLem website, which you can take a look at. Gives you more information about it. We are looking for sponsors, so if your organization is interested in the area, would like to sponsor, be part of this, would like to join the group, please send us a note. I'm not the chair. I'm just helping facilitate. These were the folks who helped us get it going in 2029. The website talks a little bit about the LoadLem, and we have a conference archive for the last few LoadLems. One was in Venice, 2017. 2020 was Los Angeles at the J. Paul Getty, and you'll see it was in San Francisco in 2011. So feel free to go through these sites to see what was occurring. We have folks who helped us archive some of this material. Should all be up and running. But what I wanted to show you today is some of the archives for what occurred at the J. Paul Getty Trust in 2020. Beautiful area, as I mentioned. And I wanted to show you some of the sort of the structure of sort of the day. So typically in these sessions, we come together, we look for a museum, preferably a research library, and then we have some welcoming openings, and we quickly go into breakout sessions and session blocks that are grouped around spaces that people might be interested in. And they do that by coming together, and people post things on, we have these little chart boards where we created the sessions on the fly there. So whoever showed up, that's sort of what, that's the area and the subject matter of what we were discussing. We call them session blocks. We try to have sponsors so that you have a nice time there. We have some after activities, and then you're going into some planning for the next upcoming session, talking about specific topics, breaking out. And part of this conference, we have what we call the in our conference, we have a schedule of folks who look at and apply for the challenge entries, which are really groups that come together that will show what they've been working on. We try to get our sponsors so that they have a prize, and they start showing examples of their work leveraging Wikidata, linked open data, and they show that to the group then votes on it, and that becomes sort of the resulting component of it. It also brings together people who are interested in this, and then more breakout sessions are tied around some of these subject areas. So I wanted just to show you this quickly, just to give you a sample of kind of what occurs. So here's one. This is from Biography Sample. This is on their website. I'll just give you a quick show of this one.
Biographical dictionaries are scholarly resources used by the public and by the academic community alike. Their biographies usually combine a lengthy text with a supplement of basic facts, such as family, education, works, and so on. Biographies are an invaluable information source for researchers of history, but are available only as text for humans readers and not as data for digital humanities applications. Biography Sampo makes a paradigm shift in publishing and using biographical dictionaries on the web based on linked data. The idea is to provide the user with enhanced reading experience of biographies by enriching contents with data linking and reasoning. In addition, versatile tooling for biographical research of individual persons as well as for prosopographical research on groups of people are provided. The system is based on a knowledge graph extracted automatically from a collection of 13,100 textual biographies written by 980 authors. The data was enriched with data linking to 16 external data sources, and by harvesting external collection data from libraries, museums, archives. The portal was released in September 2018 for free public use and quickly attracted tens of thousands of end users. Biography Sampo is a semantic portal that includes 7 application perspectives for using the underlying linked data knowledge graph. By clicking on the first perspective, a semantic faceted search view is opened for finding a protagonist or a group of them in flexible ways. Biography Sampo has reassembled for each protagonist a homepage based on the data extracted from the biographies and by data linking to external data sources. Here the homepage of Iliel Saarinen, a prominent Finnish architect, is seen with 6 biographical descriptions and 5 data analytic views illustrating his life. Biography Sampo has also provided additional recommendation links to various related biographies. The lives are represented as sequences of spatio-temporal events that the person has participated in different roles, based on an extension of the SciDoc CRM data model. For example, here the events of Iliel Saarinen are depicted as a list, on a timeline, and on a map. By clicking on another tab, the egocentric network of Iliel Saarinen is visualized. As an example for using the system for prosopography, let us click on the Life Maps view on the front page. Now the faceted search can be used for filtering out a target group of interest, here the generals and admirals of Finland in the 19th century. Their lives are now visualized as blue-red arrows from place of birth to place of death. Clearly, the soldiers moved to the south when they retired, as the retirees do today. By clicking on the arrows, the biographs about the related persons can be found. Here the arrow to Siberia is due to General Gustav Silfverhelm's biography. The prosopographical views can always be used for 2 groups or making comparisons. Here the user compare the life maps of the soldiers with those of the clergy in the 19th century. The priests clearly stayed more often in Finland. In addition to visualizations like this, the user can also create various statistics of filtered target groups and find out and analyze networks within the groups. It is also possible to analyze the language of the biographies. For example, the words family and child occur often in the biographies of female Finnish members of parliament but seldom in the biographies of men. In yet another application view, the user can solve problems using relational search and artificial intelligence. In this view, the user formulated the query, "How are Finnish artists related to Italy?" using selections in the facets on the left. Biography Sampo found out the relations with natural language expressions such as Ellen Danielson Gambogi got in 1899 the Florence City Award.
Now that was rather long, but it gives you a sense of like the project. It takes you to the website, and then the LODLAM sort of conference team allows us to sort of tear this apart, talk to the folks, look at the back end, ask questions about how they use the tools that they used, and kind of just think about ways to improve it. So it's not so much the folks are coming here just to show off to win, they're kind of coming here to show off to other folks who could help them improve their site. So you'll see that this is actually in the archive section for the Los Angeles conference. And then there are additional ones that you can go through and see, but I just wanted to surface that that's a large part of, I think, the second day morning where we're looking at these various projects that folks are putting together. And then there's an elaborate sort of, we vote on it, and then we have a winner. But these are sort of the types of projects that folks were putting together here in Los Angeles. And preferably in the archives will tell you who won these examples. But I believe I'm still waiting for our archivist to give us that information. So that was one example. So that's the conference challenge component. The delegate information is what is sort of the application process to come to the talk, to tell us about where you're located. We try to put sponsorships and funding for people's travel expenses, if at all possible. But you'll see folks are coming from all over. It's from Japan, the Netherlands, Canada. It's a small group of individuals who like to come together to share this information. And we are looking for sponsors to help in that area. So have a look here. You can look at the delegates. That's a big part of the conference. Let me come over here. We're looking for sponsors for 2024. As I mentioned, our conference in Venice was well sponsored, and the Los Angeles one was well sponsored. So if you can provide a location, a university, that would be great. That's something that the planning committee will be looking at. You'll see sponsorships throughout the years here. And then a lot of the abstract discussion forums that we have. This is the component of the conference where we go into these breakout sessions, as I was talking about in terms of the agenda, the schedule. Typically, they're facilitated by folks who come and help lead a discussion. They tag the discussion, and then they go through and try to document what folks are saying, what they're interested in, what are some good examples. And that's just kind of what I'm showing you over here. This is all ad hoc happening at the conference. The discussion, I believe they just recorded the discussion, and that's what's occurring within this space, which leads us to additional breakout sessions that occur. That's a real fun part of it. So you get to navigate and work with individuals who are in your area or specializing in some component. We put it all around in the location so people can go to these sessions. That's the unconference component where we're just coming together. It's not a set agenda, but it tries to focus around these general principles. Another section here, linked open data education and training. Again, it's trying to advance that field by showing and by bringing folks together. Let's see what else. Also, we're putting things on the wall. People are going up there. They're writing about the areas that they'd like to be discussing. Those are then selected and pulled into these breakout spaces that I mentioned. And so you get a sense of what folks are interested in talking about at that location. That takes you to the end of the first day and into the second day. The second day is sort of a recap of what occurred, and then more sessions are occurring, and then the delegate proposals are reviewed. This is a little sample of, this is the technical challenge is essentially the component where people are showing their the tools that they've built. Let's see, what else do we have? Folks are coming from all over. I mentioned that already. And then you can have a look at these these are the various breakout sessions. Some folks are even just showing the tools that they're building and the repositories and the data, and they kind of go through some of the challenges that they have, and they talk about how folks can use these tools. So it's somewhat of a deep dive technically. If you're looking to show a tool that you're using, it's a great way to come here, show the tool, see how it's applied, and dig into some of the challenges that you have. And this is another biographies, the semantic web that we have. And let's see. And the other that, and that's sort of, so that's the idea here. So that's, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the unconference and the fact that we are currently planning for the next conference. We have, you'll see that you can follow us on Twitter. Folks are looking to publicize some of the work that we're doing. We're looking for hosts for 2024, and we hope to make some announcements in the next couple of months. We're looking at a site for 2024, possibly in Paris, France. That's depends on a couple of things for the site that we're looking at and the sponsors. Yeah, we hope to do it not in the US. We're hoping that we can do it in Paris, France for our next site. We can't do the Netherlands next year because of the there's a hackathon in Amsterdam. So that is a lot of the folks that presented here from the Rijksmuseum Museum are working on that site on that conference. So we're looking at either doing it in 2024, or depending on the folks who can pull it together in 2025. If we can do it in Paris, France in 2024, then we'll try for 2025. These typically occur every two years, but because of the pandemic, we're probably not going to be able to start up until 2024. Anyway, so I hope that's helpful, and it gives you some understanding of the project and location where you can go learn more about it. If you're interested, please get in touch with me. You can get in touch with any of the current delegates. We're going to be building a new team of delegates for the 2024-2025 conference unconference. We have you'll see on the website, you can go to the website, you'll find Google Groups where you can subscribe to and join us and become part of the delegate team that's going to be putting together the site. If you have a location in mind that you can offer, that would be fantastic too. I want to thank everyone for, that's sort of my 30-minute talk on this whole conference. And then let me open it up for any questions that I can direct. Mr. Shuren or Ms. Tang. Hi, Marcia. Welcome.
Hey.
Yep, that was a good overview of the linked open data unconference structure. Again, if you're interested, please let us know. We'd like to show you or have you present at our next event. I'll show you one more. Let me pull one more together that I can show you. I think this was the winner for last year's conference challenges. These were the entries. This is the one we saw, the biography. Sampo, Israeli Museum, reusable. The one that won, 4 questions. I believe it was Science Stories. Let me show you this one. This is a perfect example of one of the presentations that we had in 2020. So let me come back. There we go. Escape out of there. Yep. So that's a good example. That I believe that's the one that won the award. That and that was a good example of them showing what they're using, the tools that they had, and a little bit about the technologies that they used to build that and to make it available to other folks. I think the theme of this is to bring the folks together, show what they're working on, have a good time working with others in the same field and looking to share repositories, technologies that they're building, expose additional areas for we can leverage linked open data, and looking for that sort of collaboration. Feel free to ask any questions you have. Let's see. And then so I encourage you guys to go to this website, have a look, join our planning group. Have a look at the other ones that presented. And if there's any additional information I can provide you, let me know, and I'll see if I can get you joined into the to our Google Groups area. And that's all I wanted to show you today. Thank you.